ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa ta'ala barakatuhu. Brothers and sisters, welcome to another episode of Quranic Parables, Amthal al-Quran. And as you've probably been following us, we've been throughout this entire month of Ramadan, we've been taking Amthal from the Quran and discussing its various aspects and lessons that we can learn. And if you have missed any of the previous episodes, you can actually catch up on the Quranic Parables Facebook page. We have listed all of the previous ones. And also, our brother kindly have created a playlist on YouTube now, where you can actually watch the previous episodes. I have shared the link to the playlist on my Facebook page, but I'll attach it again to this particular broadcast, so you can watch it on Facebook as well as on YouTube. As usual, I have my guest with me, Ustad Saf. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. How are you doing?
Alaikum assalam, Ustad. How are you this evening?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, very good, mashallah. So brothers and sisters, as usual, we request you to hit that share button, send it to your friends, family members, so that they all can benefit from this broadcast, inshallah ta'ala. So as usual, we mention a narration or a saying or some virtues about the Quran. So Saf, do you have anything for us to contribute tonight, inshallah?
Alhamdulillah, we've got, hopefully it'll be a bit relevant today, but I've got one from Abu Dharr al-Ghifari radiyallahu ta'ala an. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi man wala. So this is the hadith that's mentioned in the Sahih of Ibn Hibban rahimahullah. So he says that from Abu Dharr radiyallahu ta'ala an, that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam narrated that Abu Dharr asked him, قلت يا رسول الله أوصيني, Ya Rasulullah, advise me, kindly advise me. So the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, عليك بتقوى الله فإنها رأس الأمر كله. So he said, Ya Rasulullah, advise me with something. And he said, Inna ra'sul amri kullih. So at the head of every good is the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Qultu, I then asked the Messenger of Allah again, Ya Rasulullah, zidni. Ya Rasulullah, can you advise me a bit more on something? So the Messenger of Allah said, عليك بتلاوة القرآن فإنه نور لك في الأرض وذكر لك في السماء. So then the Messenger of Allah said, you ought to recite the Quran. Why? One of the reasons is فَإِنَّهُ نُورٌ لَكَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. It will be the light for you on the earth, and it will be a dhikr for you in the heavens. So here generally the commentators talk about how by reciting the Quran, it will be your light on earth, meaning like, to guide you through. It's your guidance. And we've been talking about the term nur over the last sort of few sessions, and we're going to mention it today in today's one as well. And then the second thing that this tilawat al-Quran is going to do for the reciter is it will be a dhikrun laka fi sama, meaning that it will be a mention for you in the heavens, meaning that the ahlu sama, humul malaika, so the people, the beings that dwell in the heavens, i.e. the angels, they're the ones yathnuna alayk fima baynahum li sababin luzumat li tilawat al-Quran. So they're going to praise you for reciting the Quran. So whoever of us recites the Quran, the angels are going to be mentioning us by the fadl and the karam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's a raising the rank of those who recite the Quran. I thought I'd share that.
No, that's beautiful, mashallah. It's very beautiful. Barakallah feek. Right, brothers and sisters. So we have again a very wonderful Amthal today. So let us go to the slide. So there we go. Bismillah. Now, before we go into the Amthal, so this is going to be a two-part broadcast. So this is part one. So we've decided to tackle this Amthal in the beginning of Surah Al-Baqarah, where there's two Amthal. There's verse 17, 18, 19, and 20. So tonight we're going to be taking these two verses where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives a Amthal. In summary, مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في الظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون. So this is what we're going to be discussing tonight. The parable is like the parable of the one who kindled a fire, but when it had illuminated all around him, Allah took away their light and left them in utter darkness. They do not see. And deaf, dumb, blind, and so they will not turn back. Now, for part two, it's going to be verse 19 and 20, which is going to be tomorrow night. So 19 is أو كصيب من السماء فيه ظلمات ورعد وبرق يجعلون أصابعهم في آذانهم من الصواعق حذر الموت والله محيط بالكافرين يكاد البرق يخطف أبصارهم كلما أضاء لهم مشوا فيه وإذا أظلم عليهم قاموا ولو شاء الله لذهب بسمعهم وأبصارهم إن الله على كل شيء قدير. And the translation is, or like the abundant rain from the cloud in which is utter darkness and thunder and lightning, that they put their fingers into their ears because of the thunder peal for fear of death, and Allah encompasses the unbelievers. And the last verse, the lightning almost takes away their sight. Whenever it shines on them, they walk in it, and when it becomes dark to them, they stand still. And if Allah had pleased, he would have certainly have taken away their hearing and their sight. Surely Allah has power over all things. So these two amthals, they come together. Because of time, we decided we're going to split the two up. So this is part one, and there's going to be part two tomorrow night, inshallah ta'ala. So just be aware of this. So if you watch this one and you want to know what happened with the next part, then make sure you follow up with the next part of the Amthal, which will be tomorrow night, inshallah ta'ala. So let's go to the one tonight. So let's listen to the recitation first, and then we'll do a basic translation. Then we'll go into the analysis and some lessons learned.
مثلهم كمثل الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات لا يبصرون صم بكم عمي فهم لا يرجعون.
صدق الله العظيم. So in the translation, they are like people who labor to kindle a fire. When it lights up everything around them, God takes away all their light, leaving them in utter darkness, unable to see, deaf, dumb, and blind. They will never return. So this is Surah Baqarah, verse 17 and 18. So let's go to the next slide where we can actually see. Right, so before we go into the details, let's just talk about the imageries. So top right-hand corner, Ustad, to symbolize hypocrisy. I don't know what you think about that image.
Like it.
Yeah, so you can see, some masks hiding their true faces. So to symbolize hypocrisy, because this Amthal and the one that's to follow, it's all about hypocrisy. And then what we have is a lit fire, fire which has been lit, as you can see. And then you have, when the fire has been taken away, what you're left with is just the ashes and the coal, really. So hopefully these images will help us tonight, inshallah, to bring alive this very vivid amthal.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful. I think that'll be another image. I think that's going to stick in our viewers' mind. Definitely.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Okay, so Bismillah, let's just go into the simile components, and then let's do a basic sort of basic interpretation meanings, and then inshallah we can sort of dig into the details, because there's quite a lot of details in these couple of verses which are very interesting and very informative in terms of conveying a very powerful message. So the basics, let's go into that, Ustad.
All right, so we've got, Bismillah, so we've got, as Ustad has set out quite neatly and nicely for us on the screen. So we know straight away now, alhamdulillah, we've done enough mathal to know the basic structure. So we've got here mathaluhum ka mathal, so already we know the structure. So we've got the mushabbah, who in this case are the hypocrite, that's represented by alladhi. So given the context, it's talking about the hypocrites. So alladhi istawqada naran. So the hypocrites who are the mushabbah, they are likened to kindling a fire, and then we can see the image, second image on my right, the kindling a fire that lights up the darkness. So they one of the hypocrites, or whoever it is, lights up the fire, kindles it, and that's what the hypocrites are compared to. But we'll come back to see what that means. So الذي استوقد نارا فلما أضاءت ما حوله ذهب الله بنورهم. So we've got the mushabbah, we've got the mushabbah bihi. The mushabbah there is in red, mathalahum, and then in yellow we've got the mushabbah bihi. And again, the simile element there is kamathal. So we've got the simile adatu tashbih, which I think is in orange, is it? Was that, yeah?
Orange, yes.
Yeah, so kamathal alladhi. So here it is, mathaluhum kamathal alladhi. We've got that. And then the underlying comparison that's been made is to do with things like no benefit, misguidance, ignorance, darkness, things like that. So in general, just to give a summary, so those who are following on the screen, the simile feature, the shabah, the wajh shabah is in green. So that's just, I highlighted it there at the bottom. So in summary, this is a tashbih. We know this is a simile to do with the state or qualities of the hypocrites, and how Allah compares them to kindling a fire. They get light. Whoever's around the fire, they get light temporarily, for a little bit, for a little while, for a little distance in the darkness. But then Allah puts the light out and they get plunged into darkness. So that's ayah number 17. And then Allah says, Summun bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un. Deaf, dumb and blind, they never will return. So really enigmatic verses here. I mean, there's nothing explicit that we can just get from the verses. So it needs some unpacking. So in broad sense, Allah saying, there's a group of people, the hypocrites, they're compared to those who kindle a fire. They get light from the fire and heat and other benefits. Only for a short while, the light gets put out, fire gets put out, and they get plunged in darkness. And then they are said to be like deaf, dumb, and blind, and never will they return. So,
you probably can see another table
yes,
with the simile components, and I just took that from I think this is what Imam al-Qurtubi kind of broke it down in these sort of categories. It's probably worthwhile just reading through that.
Definitely I was going to do that.
There might not be
Ustaz are putting in two colors there, red and black. So the top bit is each part of the ayah, and then the bottom, the second column, the second row, sorry, the first row is to do each part of the verse, and the second row is to do with what each one means. So now that we've read through the basic simile components, so what does each of these parts mean then of the verse? Because even though it's 2 lines, there's a lot in there. There's a lot in there. So let's take الَّذِي اسْتَوْقَدَ نَارًا, those who kindle a fire. We said they're the hypocrites that outwardly show iman, because that's what a hypocrite does, and that's where the picture Ustad is Punch and Judy picture there of the masks. So استوقد نارًا are the hypocrites who outwardly show iman. They have no iman inside, but outwardly they're believers. The next part of the verse says, we know that the fire lights up everything. فَلَمَّا أَضَاءَتْ مَا حَوْلَهُ. So when this fire lights up everything around them, what does that mean? Again, that's the second circle there, Ustaz has put in red. What does that mean? Imam al-Qurtubi said that it refers to the hypocrites benefiting from the rulings of the Sharia. Because when you're outwardly Muslim, see, the Sharia can't, no law, even the Shara, it doesn't govern your intentions. If you're Muslim, then the Shara will deal with you as a Muslim, if you outwardly profess that. But whatever's inside, the Shara doesn't go there. The jurisdiction doesn't go to the heart. نحكم الظواهر والله يتولى السرائر. We only judge what's outside. Allah can only judge what's inside. So the hypocrites were benefiting from the Sharia, like they're gaining protection. They're benefiting from the ahkam of the Sharia. Can you see? So Allah compares that to them having some light. Can you see? They've got some benefits from the light, heat. They can see in the darkness, things like that. But ذهب الله بنورهم. So that's the third column. Allah will put out the light, i.e. He will make them lose the benefits that they were exploiting the Sharia for. Can you see? They wanted to gain the benefits by exploiting the Sharia, by being outward believers. But when Allah exposes that, or when that ends, whether that means they die or they get exposed in the dunya, whichever way, what's the final thing that's going to happen? وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي الظُّلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. Allah will now leave the hypocrites in confusion and darkness, whether that means despair. We'll come to look at what darkness means because it's got a few interpretations on that. So Imam al-Qurtubi puts it out nicely as to what each component is, because we could get lost in it because there's lots of different elements in there. So that's in a basic way what it is.
So just, I mean, the image is quite startling in the sense that you've got to imagine that you have a group of people who are in complete darkness, and then one of them is lighting up this fire, and then it's not only lighting up this fire, but the fire is so powerful it lights everything around them.
Yes.
Around them. So they're getting the benefits of this fire. And what we are saying is that here is that this fire is symbolizing the benefits of Islam.
Yes.
And hypocrites. This is the important point. Hypocrites benefit from Islam outwardly. And if you read, I mean, that's a very uneasy picture. If you think about the situation in Medina, that means there are people in Medina, time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who were, they were praying with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They were, they were with him. They were sitting with him. They were marrying Muslims. Dealing with Muslims in every aspect of life. They are Muslims. If they give salam, you say wa alaikum salam, right? There's no, there's nothing to tell them apart from anybody else. But inside, they are disbelievers. They don't actually believe in Islam with true conviction. But
this is what, yeah.
And so that, just stepping back, it just gives you an insight into, when we think about, Islamic society, Islamic state, we talk about Muslim society, we might have a very unrealistic picture of thinking about it's an angelic society.
That's right. That's right.
That, everybody is, super muttaqi, right? Super pious and God-fearing all the time. But this just, gives us a realistic picture. Look, Islamic society, it has believers, it has disbelievers, and perhaps more dangerously, it has nifaq, hypocrisy.
Ustad, you mentioned that the greatest state on earth, the state in Medina Munawwara,
Yes.
established by the Messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that had people like what we're talking about in the ayah.
Incredible. It's incredible. I mean, and I think that is a pause for reflection.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, just on this, the bit where it says, ذهب الله بنورهم وتركهم في ظلمات. Some mufassirun like Imam al-Mawardi, he mentions, look, the reason why Allah mentions ذهب الله بنورهم, why have they got nur? Well, he says that إن ضياءهم دخولهم في الإسلام. So the nur is referring to when they entered Islam. بعد كفرهم. So after, before after they were obviously were disbelievers. And then the ظلمات, the ظلمة is خروجهم منه بنفاقهم. And so Allah leaves them in the darkness of their hypocrisy. So the nur is referred to as iman, and dhulumat is referred to as the nifaq, the hypocrisy. So that's one interpretation.
Just on that point, I mean, Sheikh Atta Abu Rashda, Hafidullah, in his tafsir, I was mentioning to you earlier on, he makes a really interesting point. He says, Allah said here, ذَهَبَ اللَّهُ بِنُورِهِمْ. Allah took away their nur, right? And he did not mention Allah taking away their diya, their light, right?
No, that's right.
And he said that, the issue of the nur is weaker than diya, yeah? And he brought the verse, هُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ الشَّمْسَ ضِيَاءً وَالْقَمَرَ نُورًا. It is who made the sun super shining, is more power in its light, I think, and moon as light, which is weaker. And he made the point that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not take away the most, not only the most brightest thing, he took away the weakest thing, which is the nur itself. Yeah. So they are left in complete darkness.
Darkness, yeah. Subhanallah.
Right? So even the usage of the language is
reflects the reality of it, yeah. SubhanAllah, and that is a subtle point.
Yeah, very subtle.
It's picked up on people who Allah gives tawfiq, I mean, on this kind of stuff. I mean, SubhanAllah. So there's so much to be said on it. If even if on the word dhulumat, for example, we've got a number of interpretations. So Ibn al-Jawzi mentions there's at least 4. So it could be that their punishment, because Allah was going to leave them, وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ. Allah was going to leave them to their punishment, because the hypocrite's punishment is going to be one of the worst.
Yes.
Dhulumat here can mean the dhulumat of their kufr, the darkness of their disbelief. Another one could be the actual darkness that they're going to be in when they're in the grave. Because when hypocrites die, that's it. That their hypocrisy is going to be exposed. They might have fooled everyone, whether in Medina Munawwara or any hypocrite who fools anyone in the dunya, but when they get to the grave, it's going to be, pitifully dark. Or the fourth one can refer to their nifaq. So there's lots of interpretations here.
And subhanAllah, the word itself is, because literally it's also darkness, because the light has gone. So there is the literal meaning that when that light has gone, they are in darkness in the parable itself. And the thing is, it's a plural that's been used, darknesses, which indicates layers of darkness upon darkness. So even if you are, in darkness, you could be in the darkness of the stars, darkness of the cloud, darkness of the rain, darkness of the night. So different layers anyway. So it's pitch dark, in other words. That's one sort of meaning which gives you. And I think the more metaphorical meaning is the different types of musibah, or the different types of calamities. That the hypocrites will find themselves in. And just on that thought about hypocrisy as a psychological state, which is that you profess something and you do something which you don't actually believe in. So inside your inner beliefs are contrary to what you publicly proclaim. your inner beliefs are contrary to how you act. Now, we know how that feels like when there's that contradiction between what you display with people and what you actually keep inside. There is a tension in your soul because there's a contradiction, and it's against the human nature and the human fitra, and you always feel at unease. I mean, if you just think about, for example, lying, just to think about lying as an example. You know something is true, but you tell a lie. How do you feel about that? Do you feel at ease? Is there tranquility? Is there a sakina? Or are you always on the edge that you're going to get caught out? Right? So there's no tranquility for hypocrisy. You're always in a state of turbulence. And I think this dhulumat kind of expresses that inner conflict and inner contradiction that you have in your soul. And that is punishment. That is,
in itself, that is agonizing in itself.
It's agonizing.
I mean, definitely in the reflection point, there's something, we've got to think about that ourselves, because not to sort of anticipate the too much, the reflection point, but we may, because we live in a pressurized, secular, liberal, humanist paradigm.
Yeah.
We're bullied into a certain type of Islam that is palatable to the status quo. Now, that might force us to be duplicitous, i.e., we really believe something inside, which, alhamdulillah, the Ummah doesn't want to let go of her belief in it, but outwardly, sometimes we might show signs that contradict, or, we articulate ourselves in a way that contradicts what we really believe. And that's dangerous. I'm not saying the Ummah is being hypocritical. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is we could be forced into almost being pushed on that road of nifaq.
Yeah.
Because of the way the climate is towards Islam. So that could be very, very dangerous. It can be very dangerous.
And
so
in terms of coming back to this issue of summun bukmun umyun fahum la yarji'un. One observation, one scholar mentioned that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use atf. He didn't say summun wa bukmun wa umyun. And it was an interesting observation that Mufassir made. He goes, that is to suggest that their state, they are all at once.
Yeah, because if you say
dumb and blind,
then you're separating them up.
So this compounds their state of affairs by removing the atf itself.
It's totalizing, isn't it? It's supposed to be a totalizing,
So they're deaf, dumb, and blind all at the same time.
Yes, and then they became deaf, and then they became blind.
No, there's no tartib, there's no order.
No, that's right. It's all together without any conjunctions in between.
Yeah. So
this is part of the i'jaz of the Quran, actually.
So this is an interesting, again, just tells you about the state of affairs of the hypocrites, and just in terms of what it means for them to be fi dhulumat, I guess. It just
Now, some of the Mufassirun say it literally does revert them to becoming deaf, blind, and dumb. Because when you're in utter darkness, you feel like that, isn't it? When you're sensory deprived. Now, Imam al-Qurtubi says, لَيْسَ الْغَرَض مِمَّا ذَكَرْنَا نَفْيُ الْإِدْرَاكَاتِ عَنِ حَوَاسِهِمْ جُمْلَةً. He said, this is not a literal meaning of their senses, their faculties of the senses going. Rather, إِنَّمَا الْغَرَض نَفْيَهَا مِنْ جِهَةِ مَا. Rather, Allah is negating it metaphorically from a particular angle. So what Allah is doing is that He's saying they're going to lose their sense of hearing from the truth. They're going to be unable to articulate the truth. They're going to be unable to perceive the truth. So it's metaphorical according to a lot of the Mufassirun. So it's metaphorical, they're deaf, dumb, and blind, because they may not actually be deaf, dumb, and blind. Can you see?
Yeah.
Hypocrites. So it's a metaphor to say Allah is going to close off all the doors, all the avenues by which they can get revelation. So like Imam Ibn al-Qayyim says, like the three doors that فَإِنَّ الْهُدَى يَدْخُلُ إِلَى الْعَبْدِ مِنْ ثَلَاثَةِ أَبْوَابٍ. So guidance comes to to the individual through these three doors, or these three sort of gates, you could say. Your sense of perception, your hearing, and your sight, and your understanding, your sight, and your hearing. And if Allah closes those doors for you, then that's it. Guidance is gone. You're blocked off. You're cut off. You're shut out. You're bereft from any benefit from hidayah. And if that happens, then you're in darkness.
And therefore, فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ.
Yeah, they're not going to come back to hidayah now, because that's it. They've been closed off, shut off from it because of their hypocrisy.
And this also, ties very nicely with the parable, in the sense of that, when you are in the pitch dark, middle of the desert or something, and there's no light, you are lost. There's no way of return.
No, not in the desert, man.
Yeah, there's no way of it. So, فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ, they will never return to the haqq, which is mirroring the idea of the group of people who are in the desert or in the wilderness, and there is no light whatsoever to guide them back to where they want to go. So what will happen? They'll be forever wandering and lost. فَهُمْ لَا يَرْجِعُونَ. So it matches nicely with the...
Yeah, because remember the context that the mathal is about. They kindled a fire and they thought, yeah, here we go. We know our way now. So in your second picture there, there's a fire. You think, wow, we know our way now. There's like a torch in your hand. We can see the path ahead a bit. So they feel secure, serene, good. But when that light gets puffed out,
yeah,
where are they now?
Yeah.
So that feeling of where are we now in absolute darkness, that fear, trepidness, despair, Allah's saying that is how they're going to be feeling. For a little while, the hypocrites are going to feel it's all going smoothly.
Yeah.
But when that gets exposed, or when they die, that's it. So subhanAllah, it's
so in terms of some reflection points, I think in terms of some reflection points,
well, one of the, I think we already mentioned very briefly, obviously here Allah through this tashbih is trying to show how, how pitifully at a loss hypocrisy is. So it's a despicable quality. It's a quality that will never get away with what its aims are. You can't harbor hypocrisy and get away with it. So that's one. That's obviously from the tashbih. That's the gharad of tashbih, one of the aims of the tashbih that we looked at today, the similes. But another thing as well we touched on is to worry about inculcating qualities of nifaq in ourselves.
And this is an important point. I mean, some scholars, they said about, I'll show it in a slide, the quote, it is only a believer who fears hypocrisy, and it is only a hypocrite who feels secure about it. So, I think, in terms of self-reflection, in terms of our own personalities, if we are fearing hypocrisy, then that's a sign of iman. That's a sign of taqwa. And, obviously there's so many examples of, the Sahabas, they used to worry about hypocrisy. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I can't remember which Sahaba that he told name of all the hypocrites. And then all the other Sahabas used to go to him and just go and check if their names are on the list. If I don't remember the details, they used to go and check if their names are on the list, because they used to feel, am I the ones, being described or discussed in these verses about hypocrisy? So definitely there is a point of reflection in our own selves that we need to make sure that what we believe to be true is reflected in our actions. What we believe is to be true is reflected in our speech. And hypocrisy is of two types. There's hypocrisy of i'tiqad, of belief, and here is talking about the people who are really disbelievers. But also the Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned hypocrisy, lesser hypocrisy, which is the hypocrisy of actions. There's many hadith to that effect, that the signs of a hypocrite, when he speaks, he doesn't speak the truth, he speaks a lie. He doesn't keep his promise, he betrays his trust, and all those hadith I'm mentioning in terms of show these are the
You're right.
ayatul nifaq. They are signs of nifaq.
I mean, the ulama talk about the characteristics, obviously extracting from the hadith and ayat about like the characteristics of nifaq, the things like they always do things on maslahah. Because when they're with the believers, they only do it out of a maslahah for them. When they're with, when they're being duplicitous, or when they're with, I don't know, let's just say they're secretly harboring, obviously they're secretly harboring kufr. When they're with the non-Muslims, they do it then based on maslahah. So every act that they do is based on, always on maslahah. I'm not talking about maslahah shar'iyya. I'm not talking about that idea of maslahah. I'm talking about maslahah that is there purely for the personal gain.
Absolutely.
Obviously hypocrites enjoying what
and I think, a couple of verses before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, the hypocrites. وَإِذَا لَقُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا قَالُوا آمَنَّا, right? وَإِذَا خَلَوْا إِلَى شَيَاطِينِهِمْ قَالُوا إِنَّا مَعَكُمْ إِنَّمَا نَحْنُ مُسْتَهْزِئُونَ. So this is like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given an example, and when they meet those who believe, what do they say? They say, "Qalu amanna," we believe. And when they are alone with their shaitans, they say, we were just, joking. We are really just with you. Qalu inna ma'akum. So here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given an example already in the verse before of their hypocrisy. So I think that's another important reflection.
It's so serious that Allah had to use the language of jihad. In Surah Al-Tahrim, Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, jahid al-kuffar wal-munafiqeen waghluz alayhim ma'wahum jahannam wa bi'sa al-masir. So Allah says, strive against the kuffar and the hypocrites, and be severe against them. Waghluz alayhim. This is asking the Prophet, who's the most
merciful, kind.
Exactly. Waghluz alayhim. Don't be severe against them. وَمَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ, and their abode is going to be hell without a doubt. And what a serious and despicable destination that is. So it's so severe. So we've got to be careful of the only way. One of the ways to try and, for us, and Allah protect us, you and I, from all of us from nifaq, is we have to study what nifaq is, to know what the characteristics are. So relieving jahl, ignorance, is one way to overcome hypocrisy, and to be, one way to be on guard against it is to know what some of the characteristics are, like being stingy, like when quarreling with someone, they curse, when they speak, they lie. And there's many other hadith, isn't it, that talk about certain characteristics, khasla, qualities that, there's another one in that hadith, I can't remember now. If anyone, when he makes a promise, that's it. When someone makes a promise, they break the promise. And other characteristics like that.
There are many, and I think, there's an entire chapter called Surah Al-Munafiqun. That's dedicated to that. So, brothers and sisters, there are many reflection points, and I think we've mentioned them. So, hypocrites that pretend Islam and conceal kufr, Islam will not benefit them since they do not believe in it. So the real benefits of Islam not only comes from artificial, superficial, outward practice, but also inner conviction in our hearts and our minds that we believe this is the haqq from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, one of the other points that we mentioned is not on a reflection point as a point here, was a side point to indicate, the Islamic society is not some angelic society. It's a society made up of good, bad, and the ugly, or should we say the good, bad, and the hypocrites. And in that society, they were living with Muslims. And the point of making that is to say, Islam is a realistic way of life. It came to be implemented upon people who have good intentions, bad intentions, good beliefs, bad beliefs, good character, bad character. So the idea, and this is the calamitous idea, which is that we need to somehow perfect our society or perfect our community before we have a victory, or before we have the implementation of Islam, is far, far removed from the reality of life and removed from the reality of the deen of Islam, given the fact that here these verses in Surah Al-Baqarah are addressing a new audience in Medina, those who pretended to become Muslims in order to safeguard their interest, to safeguard their benefits. And whilst they were doing that, we know the machinations and the alliances and the tricks of the hypocrites against the Muslims throughout the life of the Muslims in Medina is well known. Despite all of that, Muslims, they implemented Islam. And I think that should give us a understanding of the fact that when we are talking about the re-establishment of Islam, the Islamic system, the Islamic way of life, we are not talking about some angelic, perfect society. We're talking about a society full of human beings who are ruled and governed by the Sharia of Islam. And those who believe, they believe, and those who and there are going to be people who outwardly could not express their true beliefs because of the power of Islam. They're going to pretend to be Muslims and behave like Muslims and act like Muslims. You're going to have that situation and that reality.
And even if they don't get caught out, Allah's saying, well, in the hereafter anyway,
yes,
you know, that's it. They're going to be وَتَرَكَهُمْ فِي ظُلُمَاتٍ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. So
yes.
it's
SubhanAllah. And the final point, I think, is more of a self-introspection for us, that we don't feel safe, that from hypocrisy, that we should always look at our own beliefs, look at our own thoughts, our own feelings, our own actions, make sure that what we believe is what we actually express in our actions, in our behaviors. We don't have double standards. I mean, there's another word, for hypocrisy. It's called double standards, really. And we can talk about this a lot, because if you talk about, Western politics, the foundation of Western politics is nifaq, right? It's hypocrisy, if you wanted to actually use that. And it's very disgusting, because we see two-faced politicians. The hadith that we mentioned about the signs of the hypocrite, those when they speak, they tell a lie. When they, hold on to, give a pledge, they break their pledge, right? All those signs it's a typical, not only attributes, probably a qualification to become a politician in the Western democratic system, right? If you don't have these qualities, you're not going to make it. All right. So Islam, on the other hand, has a different type of politics, which is not based on nifaq, it's not based on hypocrisy, right? So there's a lot of points we can actually go into and discuss. But anyway, with that being said, I think this is part one, and hopefully you found that useful and interesting. And like we've said, brothers and sisters, this is half an hour discussion on some of our own sort of findings, our own tadabbur, our own reflections, and it's an invitation for you to research more and take more gems and take more fa'idah and benefit from these. And by all means, they're not exhaustive. So inshallah ta'ala, tomorrow we will focus on the second part, which because this method has got two parts. So the second part is verse number 19 and 20. So that will be tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. So for now, I think we are done. And from me, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Me, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
ويضرب الله الأمثال للناس لعلهم يتذكرون